I'd like to call this meeting to order. Katie, would you call the roll?
Yes. Councilmember Wolfe.
Here.
Councilmember Capes.
Here.
Mayor Montgomery.
Here.
Councilmember Straughn.
Present.
Councilmember Rayborn.
Here.
Quorum is present.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please bow your heads for a moment of silence. Thank you. Councilor, we have any items to change, delete, or amend on the agenda?
Well, yes, Madam Mayor, I would like to request we add item 4B, nonprofit discussion for Historic Society, and item 4C, consideration of approval of budget amendment number 20 to the agenda.
Okay. Anything else?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd request that budget amendment number 18, specifically item 18A, Adam, be removed from consent agenda and added for discussion after public comment.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve these changes?
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on to consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
As
As
requested.
advised.
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Katie, do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
Nobody signed up.
All right. Lawrence, since you requested the change, would you like to start the discussion on budget amendment number 18?
Yes, I would. Again, this is specifically just for item number 18A as in Adam. The 18B and 18C, can move forward with those. I don't know if that requires a vote at that point, but the request, as written and as I understand, is to hire an outside company to come in and look at our ordinances, update if needed be, maybe train staff and that sort of thing, so that this particular company, and in addition, this particular company would then go around the city or the town and look for violations of said ordinances, if I'm relaying that correctly. Is
Correct.
pretty close, okay. Specifically, I like to have their scope of work defined and how far they actually go and what they're actually doing. Not just a general, this is what, clause of what they're actually going to be doing. I like no specifics, because I think as a council, we're going to be inundated with questions from the public on a multitude of issues. Some of them can be law enforcement related, in that people complain about potentially of people trespassing, sitting out in front of houses, taking pictures, out in front of business, taking pictures, asking neighbors, this, that, and the other. I don't, again, not knowing the scope, I don't know where or how far these folks are actually going to go with it. So in the definition of the definition of their work scope would help me understand that part of it. As well, I'm 100% with us updating our ordinances. I'm 100% with us training staff and ways of approaching ordinance violations, what their limitations are, at what point do they need to bring law enforcement in, a number of things. I'm all for that. I'm all for them updating the actual ordinance itself. But when it comes into the enforcement, we have people that we pay to do that. And the questions I'd have about that is if we have a backlog, why is there one? What have we not done in the past that caused this backlog, or short of another word to give it, or another label to give it? Why weren't the issues specifically handled? What kind of issues are they? How many issues are there? Who's responsible now, and why why weren't these individual issues, each and every one of them, been taken care of? And in that aspect, if we go with this particular company, whichever one it is, who's responsible then at that point? Is the town responsible? Is this company responsible for going out and issuing citations or whatever the procedure is going to be? And then do we become basically a huge HOA enforcer for other residence areas that already have existing HOA folks that go out and do the same sort of thing? Will they then be confused with and forward everything to this group, and then they put it on us? You know, I just see a lot of confusion there unless we've got a lot of definition. I can give you an example of what happened recently when I was made aware that this may be a possibility. It was kind of strange that it happened this way, but I had a neighbor that came to me and asked me why we had folks out trying to make citations on folks fertilizing their yards. And as it turned out, somebody from the state or another agency other than us had stopped at his front porch, came out and started talking with him, was going to cite him if he didn't have the proper credentials to put fertilizer on his own property. So his comment to me was, well, what are y'all doing? Why you got people out looking for stuff like this? And I, had the blank look of, well, we didn't do it. But I understand that needing to be done if it's an issue that, that needs to be addressed. And again, this is my opinion, but I think we become an aggressive HOA system when we're hiring somebody to do nothing but specifically go out there and look for stuff. I think that, again, in my opinion only, it creates the appearance of government overreach. I think that it could bring up all sorts of issues, again, in how are they going to enforce or look for whatever it is that they're looking for, in that, if they've got to go in somebody's front yard, backyard, or a business, or, those sort of things. I think it just creates that atmosphere of we're out to get you when we're not. And I think on the back side of that if we have this list that's given to us at the very end that has a litany of things that are not being taken care of within the town, or that may be on the ordinance that's been overlooked, this, that, and the other, and we have one or we have 10,000 violations, that's a ground zero for us. So if we don't address each and every one of them, or we just pick and choose, we're creating animosity and issues in neighborhoods itself. So if we go and talk to A, and they say, yeah, okay, I'll take care of it, but what about the guy up the street, which didn't get on the list because they just happened to miss it? Then we've got all that stuff going on. I think it's just back and forth, and it's something that I personally don't feel that we need. I think if we've got folks here within the town that can do it, have been doing it, how many hundreds of years we've been in existence, what's the cause? Why all of a sudden the need to do this, and the expense, if I understand it correctly, is roughly $7,000. And that's kind of the gist of what I have. I'd like to bring that out only because I just think that it's, for us as a board, we're going to be called every other day that somebody's sitting out in front of somebody's house taking pictures, and the town as well, and in law enforcement. It's just that sort of thing. And that's not the only thing that brings out my adverse opinion of this. It goes beyond that, in that, I'm very much so property rights, it's your property, unless there's something that's flagrant, so be it. And I think we've got so many eyes within our own town that we don't need to hire. We've got a trash truck crew that goes around twice a week, and there's 3 sets of eyes. So if it's a train up, you can't say that they already don't know things to look for, because I've had them look at my neighbor's yard who, when they were doing some cutting of trees and put it out front, they refused to take them to begin with on that Wednesday pickup because they thought maybe a company had come in and cut them. After discussion, well, obviously the truck crew is the one that called the person to come do the discussion. So I think we have a base of folks that can be eyes for the town if they're trained correctly and trained in what to look for. And it's not that difficult of a thing, even if it's just I think that house is falling apart. Okay, well, you send them the complaint up to your chain of command, and it'll get to the right person. So I disagree with paying that extra money for somebody to go out and do a job that I think we already pay employees for. And I don't think that the end result is going to be a pretty one. That's what I have to say.
I just wanted to say, I know when I talked to the mayor and the members of the board and talked to employees and a certain amount of citizens, I think one of the things that I picked up on, or I have observed, is that we have been inconsistent in how we have enforced the ordinance. I think there have been very few things that have been done. Some of the largest things have actually been handled by our attorney as it relates to pigs and farm animals and that type thing. And so what I wanted to do was to use a demonstration program. In other words, and we're looking at perhaps a day and a half, 2 days a week from April through June, to have someone come out to take a look, as you said, of our ordinances, maybe to look at a commercial maintenance code, and to see if there's anything that needed to be added, or if any issues had come up that we don't have an ordinance to address, or if there's something that we have on the books that's outdated, to try to get our ordinances in condition. And right now, the assistant town manager and the director of planning has been our #1 enforcer. And as for my benefit, I'm using him on a lot of different issues right now. And so we've got kind of a backlog, and we also need somebody that has the ability to inspect, to write something up, to encourage the person to go ahead and correct the problem. But as we know, on occasion, there are people who, are maybe tearing down other people's property values because they aren't taking care of their own property. And so our whole approach, I would think, in this town would be encouraging people to comply. And most people, if we go to them and say, hey, this is an issue, and I'll check by, next week or 2 weeks or whatever, and that's sort of our approach. But I really felt that the $7,280 for a quarter of a year would give the board an idea of how this would work, to see what difficulties, if any, that we had. And then after seeing how it worked, you'd be in a position to make a decision based on information that we have observed within the community. And so, and I was looking at, even recommending this in the budget for next year, a day a week. We do not have a lot of stuff. We do have some backlog because even if the folks on the sanitation truck see something, they're not in a position to do anything about it, report it to assistant town manager, director of planning, and the overall value of how I'm using, that staff resource. I felt that the $7,280 would be a good investment. And so I know you and I talked about it on the phone, and I think you have some legitimate concerns, and maybe at our budget retreat on Friday we can talk about it, and maybe I'll go ahead and get a contract that'll have the scope of the work. But I did mean that we would do some enforcement, throughout the town, and if it creates a bigger problem than it is, then okay, and if it seems to be working, at least y'all would know based on a 3-month trial program. And that was my, at least the observation of your interim town manager, realizing that I do not have all wisdom, but that's what I was trying to accomplish. And so maybe I can get a contract or get a scope of work out, but it does involve, some enforcement. So you're right, and I understand you're not a fan of that at all, but perhaps we can talk about it Friday, Mayor, if that's good, and maybe I can get a scope of work together by Friday.
Well, the one thing, pardon me, answer a couple of things you said. I'd only like to say, you may mention that I'm not a fan of enforcement. I am a fan of enforcement. I come from 35 years to write you a ticket because I'm the guy. So enforcement, I'm not scared of, and I think that
Or
if we
code
train-
enforcement, I should say.
Well, code enforcement, same sort of thing, but I think that if we've had our staff trained correctly, what I see on the backside of this is that you've got a company now who we've hired to do these sort of things, and every time a complaint comes in, it's, well, you need to call this number. So it's back and forth when we pay, and as a town taxpayer, I pay for services here, and I would like to see that organizational chart, how that thing is going to actually work versus, toss the money at it, hope it, go forth and be happy. And on the enforcement side of it, then do we have to pay them to go to court? Do we have to pay them to serve the civil summonses and all the things that go along with that? So there's a lot of questions that are not answered just by 18A, and I'd like to see those in writing before I personally could make that vote to spend the taxpayers' money.
I'll throw in this much. From the conversation I had with Dave individually, the town manager individually, my understanding of this is predicated on getting the ordinances totally gone through for consistency and looking at where we stand on everything up to this point. As far as the enforcement piece beyond that, I recognize that that was going to be a component, and I personally think Friday would make the most sense at this point, but I just think that the driving force behind this was to make sure that the town's consistent from an enforcement standpoint. We have had some issues in recent history, and in terms of things that have just come up, not that, it was done incorrectly, but just that it came up. And from an ordinance standpoint, I think realistically having an outside pair of eyes looking at that would not be a bad thing. So that's the only piece I would put out in relation to what you're talking about. I saw it more as a look at our ordinances and then as far as the enforcement piece, that would come in behind it, of course, if necessary, but it would be something that we would see hand in hand. So the emphasis I felt like was going to be more.
Well, it's on the first part is to take stock of what we have, evaluate our ordinances. We do not have some ordinances to address certain situations. You're probably aware of some of those. And there's perhaps some things on there that we don't need to have. And we do not have a commercial maintenance code for the business part, and we've had issues with things that were there, and we really have no way to address it. So I wanted to take a comprehensive look at the ordinance. Certainly the person is going to evaluate them. We're going to have our town attorney take a look at them and make sure that on balance that we have the capability to address the different areas. And then I wanted to have a summary of the kind of things that they see, in Jamestown. And then, what I would do is take right now people fill out stuff, they turn it in, and, we get to it as we can. A lot of it, we don't have ordinances that can even address it. But a little bit along is better than, being inconsistent or being a little bit overrun. And I would say that we have been very busy at Town Hall, and that, in my mind, is not a big issue with some of the ones that I'm working on. And I thought actually a contract would be even better than an employee, who we would, end up paying benefits and salary to. Now, we could certainly assign that. I've actually been out on a drive on code enforcement with Paul, and, there's some issues that we identified that are going to take some time to work through with the homeowner. But my whole thing is every town is different. I've used code enforcement companies in the past, and I found them to be effective. And I'm not looking at a heavy-handed code enforcement effort in Jamestown. but some consistency of addressing the issues. And I thought, rather than, make a full-time recommendation in the budget, that we try this out for a couple of months, and if it works, hallelujah. If it doesn't, we'll do something else. But sometimes it's good to try it on and see how it works, and then we can make an informed decision and vote it up or down. And that was
Well, to go along with what you just said, I'm wholeheartedly for Part A of what you're suggesting. Part B, with a little bit of modification, I'd be with you as well.
Okay.
If we have existing complaints and existing issues that staff has not taken care of, or that are resounding, or just been sitting out there and nothing's been done with them, fine, have them look at those and have them train up the staff on what to do, how you should do it, and what needs to be done, those sort of things. But going out and riding around neighborhoods and those sort of things, I'm adamantly against. But if we have existing stuff, fine. Have them train up the staff and do what needs to be done with that. But the other part of B, if you want to call it, or if I'm calling it that, I personally just could not.
What I'll do is take, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yeah, if I might here, just, I will say this has been brought up before, having a service, and I have been against it before, because I always thought it was one thing that we were proud of. As a small town, we provide a whole lot of services with the staff that we have, and have been very careful on what we outsourced. And I guess now, currently, this responsibility is in the planning director's job description, and I think in the new planner as well, job description, code enforcement.
It has been in the past.
Is currently in the job descriptions, right?
It is currently in the job description.
That's what I was saying. And I think you're right, we need a little more information on this, because our enforcement has always been complaint-driven, whereas a citizen, or if a staff person saw it, then we would follow up on it. We didn't actively ride through, as you say, looking for something every day, or if it's 1 day a week or 2 days a week. That may be a different on how this is driven. Is it complaint-driven, or is this person, if they are hired, they're going to go every week looking for something? So I think there are more questions, as you have said, you brought up, that we really need a little more information on how it's going to play out, what that expectation is. I do think going through the ordinances, seeing if what we have is enforceable. Currently, federal and state laws, is it correct? Are there things we need we don't have? As far as a backlog, I can't, council ought to have that list, what the backlog is, if it's really big. I mean, that would be good to know as well in the other information. And I would be happy to take the 18.8 out and discuss that at the budget retreat, and then approve the other two, if that's.
Well, I could have the scope of work is A, B, and C, and then, we could talk about C, which would be the actual enforcement. And the two things that I hear you saying is evaluation of the ordinance. Perhaps I really think we need a commercial maintenance code, and also reviewing them to see, what things we cover, what things we don't, and make sure that we have a solid foundation for code enforcement. And the second one, would be taking a look at the backlog of information that we have and making sure we address those. And the third one, which would be the enforcement on a routine basis, that seems to be the issue that you brought up. And y'all can decide to do that, yay or nay. That's a recommendation from your town manager. But if y'all think better of it, then that's good with me too.
Well, question, the new person that was going to come in, that we were going to hire, was part of their job duties going to be inspections and those sort of things when it came to the new building and stuff? Would that person also be someone who could be doing this?
Yeah, well, I think that's in it's in the job description that they do some of it. It would be nice to get it all in order, so that when somebody comes in, they're working from a clean slate.
Right.
And that's just, I've recommended many things over the years, and elected officials have not nearly approved as much as I've ever recommended. I think this is needed, but if y'all think better of it, then that's what rules the day.
Well, I appreciate you bringing it forth, and I do agree with the the first two, but the second half of B-boy or C or whatever we're going to give it, I've made my peace.
Thank you. I'll bring that back, and hopefully we can go forward with at least looking at the ordinances and looking at the backlog, and then we can discuss, y'all can decide what you want to do with the other. You've heard my recommendation. I won't mention it more than 2 or 3 more times.
So what I'm going to ask now is for us to remove item A from this budget amendment and approve the other 2 items since we have removed it from the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Okay, old business, Matthew Johnson, the new Parks Master Plan, option B.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. During the budget retreat in January, the council did request that the staff continue to explore options for keeping and repairing the existing baseball fields at the Jamestown Park. Staff's going to be bringing a brief update to that work at the April 5th meeting for the Parks and Recreation Steering Committee. We're going to be proposing that they add that into the master plan. We'll be adding that, hopefully, as a recommendation to the April 20th Town Council meeting, and we'll be bringing that to you for hopeful adoption at that meeting. Our highlights include, for option B, would be retaining the sports field. So this would be an option that would be added in addition to the one we already have public input on. To retain the sports fields that are existing, explore some options for using both that field for both baseball and soccer. And one of the ways that we can do that is that we can add synthetic turf. We will take an extensive look at areas where we could save some funds and still bring a viable option for sports programming to the site. And I wanted to give you an idea of the deliverables that we'll be receiving. Would be a renovation concept plan and a cost analysis for doing that. That would be included in our overall master plan, again, which we will be presenting for your consideration that night. I know that our consultants at McAdams will have a representative here that evening on April the 20th. I just want to make sure that the scope is appropriate. If you have questions, I'm happy to field them now.
Well, why, or just why would you want the field to be baseball and soccer? Are our soccer fields filled up that we have now?
We are having a tremendous push for our soccer fields right now.
Okay.
We're receiving a lot of use. In fact, we've had so much that Scott has had to rearrange some of the use currently for some of the smaller children at the baseball fields because we just don't have room to accommodate them, especially because of COVID.
Yeah.
So we are seeing that growth in the soccer complex.
Excellent.
Well, it's good,
It's
yeah,
moving.
good.
Excellent.
So it's good, but one of the things that the consultant said was, we can purchase the synthetic turf, which my understanding, because we've had these 2 really, really wet years,
Yeah.
that using regular turf fields has been very tough on teams and very tough on the fields. So synthetic turf would last for 10 to 15 years. It required minimal maintenance. You don't have to water it. It could be permanently painted for both soccer and baseball. So it's an option to explore. If we're going to look at putting that type of money into renovations, we want to get the biggest bang for the buck.
Sure, yeah.
To the best of your knowledge, Matt, what kind of costs are we talking about for that synthetic turf?
I don't have the numbers yet. That's part of the scope, is that they're supposed to deliver us, based on other work that they've done throughout the state and actual bids, current numbers, if you will.
Gotcha.
So
Is
we will
it a
have
league-
those.
Is it a league that's starting to use it more often?
Soccer Shots has been the one that's come in and mostly recently and is starting to add. Of course, we have the YMCA and JYL. Those are our 2 biggest users. But Soccer Shots, in fact, we had a Zoom call with all 3 of those a couple weeks ago or so, because until daylight savings time kicked in, they were having a scheduling conflict. They couldn't get that many people in the soccer complex without breaking some rules. So Scott was able to move them down. They were agreeable to that, and they were able to play some of the smaller kids on the baseball fields.
Well, thank you for that. Speaking of the small kids, I took my grandbabies out to the park, and the playground has been updated and cleaned up, and it really looks good out there. So
Thank you. I will pass that along to Scott. They've been working pretty hard. They've got a small staff. They're trying to get everything in good order.
It
This
looks
time of the
good.
years when things, pre-emergence and fertilizers and all that kind of stuff goes out. But I'll let him know that you said that.
It looks good.
Well, hopefully in a few months, some of those restrictions will be lessened even more.
We're praying for
I
that.
know that, everybody is.
Absolutely.
Hey, Matthew, as far as the cost analysis, does that include the lights and?
Yes, so we will bring a plan for a full renovation, lights, the whole deal.
Can they break it up kind of like an à la carte buffet, so if we decide we wanted to do?
It's certainly à la carte. And my hope is that we'll put this into the plan, and then we'll work from a phased approach from a grant application standpoint. We can talk further about which phases we do first, 1, 2, or 3, or what those phases look like. Certainly, if we're going to apply, and you've been through this before, Martha, the application is intense, and it takes a tremendous amount of time, so we're going to ask for, the biggest amount of money that we think that we would be successful in achieving. So that may be phase 3, it may be something we do as phase 3 a little bit later, or it may be that we can't get part of money, for example, for basically renovation of an existing facility. They want to see us add new stuff, and this wouldn't be necessarily an add. They would probably look at that as just a taking care of your own assets type of approach. We may use the application for the other side where we would add new amenities, and we would have to field that cost ourselves. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get the numbers in. Again, I just wanted to give you an update that we're working on it, let you know that the Parks and Rec Steering Committee will be meeting on April the 5th, and it will most likely be in person in here. That's it. If you have further questions.
Yeah, I think that sounds great.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm definitely all for anything that can be multi-use. Sounds fantastic. If it turns out that there is a grant issue, I'm just kind of concerned that we've never had the conversation about the baseball fields on their own, that it's always, in previous years, we had talked about wanting to add into the budget the lighting and fixing them up, and we were told, well, there's going to be a whole plan, so that can be integrated into there, and then we got to the plan part, and the fields weren't there, and there was talk about this developer was offering some things, and so I feel like we've never really had the conversation about, does Jamestown need to be providing baseball fields? And so I don't want us to just assume that we definitely do or that we don't. I feel like there's still an area there where we need to just truly evaluate, how much use are they currently getting? What are the resources like around here? Are there enough even baseball teams that could use them if they were updated and things like that? So I just want to, I know I was very much for having a plan B, but my motivation was more because I felt like we were making a decision because we were being promised something somewhere else versus we never really talked about, is it worth the investment for Jamestown to do this? And so I don't want to leave that out. So
I agree with you 100%.
Still have that.
I agree with you 100%. If we're going to look at investment in the existing field, we definitely need to see what type of potential use we may get out of that. I'm going to jot that down, and we'll talk to the consultant about whether or not we can get some survey work done, figure out exactly what the hardest part with gauging what type of use we get is the fact we don't have lights. And that cuts out a tremendous amount of the season because of time and daylight. So we will definitely add that in as a potential talking point.
Wasn't there a movie, Build It and They Will Come?
It was a cornfield.
Yeah.
So if we plant corn there first,
It was a great movie. It was a great movie.
I guess, is it JYL that does baseball?
Yes.
Because the Y doesn't do baseball.
I don't believe, now that you say that, I don't believe that they did, but I think they did do one program, if I'm not mistaken, earlier this past year when COVID first got kicked off. And if I'm not mistaken, Sarah Glenville, they were sharing the field, and there were some questions about spacing, and So I think they did have a small program in the beginning.
Okay.
Survey for potential.
Well, I, for one, certainly appreciate you doing this and the consultant doing this.
I'll second that.
Well, I'm not asking for a vote, but I do appreciate your comments. If that's all, I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you, Matt.
Judy, we're going to add the discussion for the Historic Society, and then also, I guess, budget amendment number 20, while
Yes.
you're here.
Yes. Okay, the Historic Society. The interim town manager and I met last month with a representative from the board of the Historic Jamestown Society. We discussed ways that they could provide programming to the community, during this time of COVID. So they came up with some ideas, and they sent us a request, and they are planning to do some video series online, as well as they want to establish what they call a traveling trunk for educational programs. They currently don't have all the equipment they need for streaming these programs and things like that. So they did send a request to see if we could help them provide these things. And they're requesting $2,730 for the equipment needed to stream their programming, and $2,000 to establish this traveling trunk that they would take around for educational programming. So we are requesting that the council approve this requested funding. It is in the current budget. We would come up with a short contract that we would have them sign, and we will require documentation that they actually, are doing the programming and using the funds in the way that they were intended to.
Where is the traveling trunk going to travel to?
I
Is
think,
this something for schools or?
yes, I think schools is one of the things, but I think, perhaps other uses as well.
Motion to approve.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty cool idea, a very novel idea they came up with.
Okay, I've got a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Okay, the budget amendment number 20. So this budget amendment would cover overruns incurred by the contractor of the East Main Street sidewalk project. There was a lot of issues they ran into: drainage, soil conditions, erosion control devices, and pavement that they were required to do, I guess, outside of what their scope was to begin with. These things should be reimbursable by DOT, and they should be under the limit that we have with DOT to reimburse us. We met with the contractor today, and we are negotiating a couple of the items, and we're also trying to set up a meeting with DOT to discuss this project. If you have any more questions.
Just one quick one. Am I wrong in, I thought that we were going to put a crosswalk lighting system similar to what we've got out here at the office here? Will there be one at the crosswalk down on Main Street near the bridge? Or just up from the bridge?
Yes, we have it purchased. It will go, say, near Will's driveway. Until they complete the project, we're not going to.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, if you set up the meeting with DOT, maybe we can ask them when we'll be getting reimbursements on all of our other requests we've sent in, because we haven't gotten any in over 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, I am looking into that.
But I guess as long as this is within the budget of the grant that we have, and hopefully we're not being charged for the things that were the railroad company's fault and some of those other items that were not our fault.
I mean, it is my understanding that those are reimbursable.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Judy. Okay. Paul, if you will talk to us about the resurfacing contract.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We opened bids today for the 2020-2021 resurfacing contract, and we received favorable bids. We had 4 bids. I'll be glad to read the whole narrative if you'd like, but Blythe Construction was the low bidder at $269,032.90. Sharp Brothers at $310,085.55. Wall Asphalt at $313,405.84. Haynes Construction at $348,924.87. Based on my cost estimate, I was closer to $322,000 was my estimate. We felt like we got very good pricing. They do supply asphalt. They, looking at the unit prices on the bid sheet, their unit price for the major line item 2, that's really where they made up most of the ground to win the, to have the low bid. They are suppliers. We feel like it's a great opportunity. We are under budget on our HAL bill funding. We have $275,000 budgeted. I did talk to the contractor just to see, and well, obviously spoke with Dave and Matt, about extending some of the areas that we're working, like a block here or there. We feel like we can pick up 2 to 3 blocks of pavement, which is a big deal for us, and stay within budget. And so that's why we've made a request to approve the contract plus an additional $50,000. Some of the money on this contract is water and sewer, because when we encounter water manholes, valves, previous water and sewer repairs, those are water and sewer issues that are paid for out of that fund. And I'll be glad to answer any questions I can.
Where is Blythe Construction from? Where are they from?
I think the home office is Charlotte, but they have a Greensboro office.
Yeah,
And they've worked for us before.
I think,
Yes, I believe it was before I was here, but they're all around. They're a large company.
Any red flags whatsoever and a $40,000 difference in bid?
I think it came down to they're a supplier, and they may not be as busy as some of the others.
Wonder why?
well, I'm tickled to get a good bid.
Yes, I was very excited when that bid was bid.
And to be able to do more than you originally thought you could.
Yes. Well, with council approval, obviously, we have a contract for certain quantities and various line items, and we will do our best to stick with those items.
I assume we're going to have somebody make sure that they're doing it to our specs and state specs and all those sort of things. So if they're not doing it correctly, then we're going to call them and make them do it correct at the time.
Yes,
right?
we typically do the inspection ourselves.
Right,
And we're hands-on involved. We do a lot of the manhole adjustments ourselves.
right.
It's quicker.
Well, I've seen you guys out there with them, watching them and standing there watching the trucks and those sort of things. I just want to make sure that that's, especially with the $40,000 difference, that would throw up some red flags for me. But motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
And
Thank you
that's-
very much.
That's for the total. Is that 319,032.90? Does that include the 50,000?
That includes the 50,000.
All right.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Judy, the PNC lease agreements, do you have information for that?
So you should have copies of these lease agreements in your packet. There's 2 lease agreements, financing with PNC. The first lease will be for leasing 72 golf carts at a monthly payment of $5,327, which consists of leasing the carts and service and maintenance on the carts as well. This is the same price that our current lease is, so there's no increase in that lease. The second lease is for leasing a range picker at the golf course to be used on the driving range, and 2 utility carts, one which is used for golf maintenance and one for recreation, at a monthly payment of $509. So basically, these leases are a renewal of our current leases that are in effect now. They actually have the term of 48 months, but usually the companies want to renew in 3 years instead of 4, so which is actually better for us. But the rates are based on 48 months. The equipment, golf carts and the other equipment would be exchanged in late June, and then payments on the new leases would begin in July. So we recommend that you approve entering into these 2 leases.
Do you have a percentage of the increase or decrease? Was there an increase?
There was just a small increase in the second lease, and we actually changed one of the utility carts from a gas to an electric, so there was a small increase due to that. But it was a very small percentage. I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly, but it was.
Hundreds, not thousands?
No.
I guess the town attorney has reviewed the leases.
Yes, Beth did, and she was fine with both leases.
Cool.
Motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Judy. Okay. Dave, do you have a manager's report for us?
Yes. I may have to take this off so I can talk and breathe.
That'll be fine.
Breathing is important.
Breathing's important.
It is, I want to ask someone to come up here with me. There's a stranger in the audience. Would you join me up here for a moment? I am
Stranger in
happy
town.
to introduce to you Michael James Claybrook. And Michael, I call him Jamie. We have a lot of J's around, but I call him, his name is Jamie. But he has 21 years of experience as a golf course superintendent. He has been at the Oak Hills Golf Course and the Greensboro National Golf Course from 1999 to 2006, and from 2006 up until last Monday. But he has started on Monday, and he brings a wealth of talent, and we are excited about having them there. And I think I've shared with you is I had an acceptance today on the assistant golf course superintendent pending drug test and background check. Okay. And tomorrow I'm hopefully will be meeting and encouraging the golf course mechanic to join us. And so we've been doing a lot of interviewing, and at this point I want to allow Mr. Claybrook, Jamie, to share with y'all a little bit if you got any questions of him, but we are absolutely delighted to have him.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Hi
Welcome.
there.
Hey, welcome.
Welcome to the team.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here. I'm happy for the opportunity to be here, and I'm hoping to make the golf course, and will make the golf course, very desirable and keep it that way. And is there any questions that you guys may have for me?
That's what I was going to ask. What do you think of the golf course?
I think it's a great layout. I think it looks really good.
Cool.
We have a lot of improvements that need to be made, and excited about going in and getting those improvements made. A lot of drainage issues and irrigation that needs to be worked on. But we'll get it done. We'll get all our goals accomplished, and I'm excited about getting in there and getting to it.
Well, welcome. I'm glad you're here.
We are delighted
Very
to
much.
have you. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on. Thank you for working with Dave. Dave, thank you for the work that you took in bringing us a fine specimen. Hopefully, it'll work out. I love our golf course. I think it's a gem for Jamestown, and I want to see it continue to progress. I'd like to see it make more money. We don't really have a lot of control over that, per se. But You've got some work ahead of you, and I appreciate your effort, and you came with such accolades from Dave. I can't expect anything but just the ultimate best out of you.
Well, that's what I'm going to give you.
He put you on that pedestal, let's just say that. And that's a good thing, so.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Now we just have to get you a few employees.
Yeah, that would
A
help.
little detail.
That's your problem.
But we are going after it. And at this point, I want to turn it over to the Assistant Town Manager / Planning Director /
Zoning enforcement.
whatever.
Enforcement.
And he has an introduction, and then I'll come back and finish the report.
Well, thank you, Dave. And I'm going to take this opportunity to bring up a special guest in the audience this evening. This is Anna Hawryluk, and I'm going to challenge each of you to learn to spell that. But Anna has been a planner and environmental programs coordinator for the Piedmont Triad Regional Council and has worked a lot with alternative fuels, long range, and current planning. And she has a lot of experience in grant management, grant writing, which is going to come in handy here, current planning and land use planning. She's been a planner for the last 10-plus years, working at both Piedmont Triad Regional Council as well as the city of Raleigh. And you may recognize her as a familiar face because during her tenure at PTRC, she's had the opportunity to fill in during planner vacancies, including here in Jamestown. So I want to take this opportunity to really welcome her to our team. She's going to be joining us next Monday as a planning staff person. And if you have anything that you want to ask her, I'm going to turn the floor over to her. But we're delighted to have her. I will say this, when I did share this information with some of my colleagues, this is perhaps the greatest form of flattery, but they said, what a win for Jamestown.
There you
So,
go.
Yay.
Amen.
Anna?
Thank you. Welcome, Anna.
Welcome.
Hello, thank you
Welcome to
so
the
much
team.
for having me, and I'm excited to start on Monday, feet first.
Well, I would just like to say, when Matt spoke, that she did, through Piedmont Tri-Council of Government, work for Jamestown during our transition period, and I got to work with her at that time, so I can attest that she was wonderful to work with. And we did some enforcement things. I remember one in Cedarwood we did together. But anyway, I'm glad you're here, and we are lucky to have you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. John, if you want to fill in with some singing, go for it.
No.
Not at this time.
No. And you don't need to do that either.
One of the things that I wanted to share is that this Friday, we have a budget retreat, March 19th, 2021, at 9 o'clock a.m. Here in the Civic Center. And the staff, and when I say the staff, there's hundreds behind me, but the town staff, many of you know that I've talked with the mayor, and I've talked to all of the board members. I've talked to the chairman of the planning board. I've talked to all of the employees, maybe 3 or 4, and through my observation, we have come up with a strategic planning model, and it's been 65 days, but we have a strategic planning model that we are going to introduce Friday. And this is going to be a little bit different than what we have done in the past, but one of the things that I thought was perhaps missing a little bit is I know the mayor and the Board of Aldermen are directing the policy and the things that they want to see done. And so one of the things that I thought might be missing was an opportunity for y'all to give guidance to the staff on where we wanted to go. And so we know where we are, and We're going to talk a little bit on Friday about where we're going to, where at least the manager and the staff, and you'll notice a lot of the things that y'all have talked about. We will review those items, and then once we review those items, I will ask the mayor and the board to help us share with us if there's anything that's on there that shouldn't be on there, and if there's some things that perhaps we have overlooked without your full benefit. And then we would try to set what we call tactical goals. In other words, those things you think are most important for the benefit of our community. And we have prepared a series of 36 different items that we have come up with on a 2 to 5 year basis. And once we go through this process and take, what it is, hopefully we approve our strategic plan in the budget, and this will provide direction to your staff, and you know that we will be working on the things that you think are most important, and there will be other things in there as well. We may not think it that important that we update our stormwater information, but it is a state mandate, and so there's some things that we've got to do, but I think this is going to allow some discussion between the mayor and the board, and between the manager and the staff, and I think we will reach a consensus on where we're headed, and I think we will remove a blockage of communication, if you will, and I think that this could work very, very well. So it'll be a little bit different, and we'll have an opportunity to look at every line item, but what I want to do is cast the net and see where it is that we're heading on the 30,000 foot level. And some of these items certainly have money attached to them, and this does not negate the fact that we need a capital budget, but I think it's going to help us set the course for Jamestown, and I think that this is the group to do it for the future. And I know we've have always had goals, and we've always accomplished a lot, but I think this is going to allow us to focus our attention on the most important things. So I'm excited. I might be the only one in the room excited about that.
Sounds like an excellent idea.
I know, yeah.
I'm excited, and I think I've shared with y'all, and Matthew's been a great help to me in helping to put this together. And the other thing that I wanted to mention, especially since our new golf course superintendent is here, we have spent a lot of time looking at our current facility, and I noticed at our meeting in January, there was maybe some surprise that we weren't ready to bid out that building. And I felt like that was probably number one, and I had to, I had a team, including Jay and several others come in, and we sat down, 5, 6, 7 of us, and we came up with some great ideas. And one of the things that we discovered, that maybe I discovered and everybody else knew, but we do have the fairground building, and we do have several thousand square feet of that has a lot of stuff in it. And we had Scott and several of us, we're going to be working to clear that out, and we think we can put some concrete down and some asphalt, and that we can store every piece of equipment that we have in that building. And I am not as concerned as some about the roof, but if we're able to store that, then the new facility does not have to be so big at perhaps $100 a square foot. And we're looking at a metal building, and next week we will be meeting with an architect to make sure that we have the space set aside for the grinding room and for the repair of equipment, offices, meeting space, break room, wash pit, and maybe running a little line up from the current location up to where that building would be, which would be right adjacent to the building. and we're going to put it back a little bit so that we maximize space for the athletic fields, and we're going to look at gas pumps and make sure that we come up with a quality project. We want to do it once, and we want to have it last a long time. And actually, our new golf course superintendent has had a lot of input into that process. And so I'm excited that we are moving that, and I hope, you know, within a period of time, we can share with you what we've come up with and get some firm cost estimates. We do have $500,000, you know, that we have for that, but to me, it was good that if we could store that equipment, put a little heat in there, some lights, that that building, you know, is going to be very valuable to us in the future. We might have to put a roof on it. It could be flat, it could be angled, it could be an A-frame roof. We'll look at all alternatives, but we want to certainly try to do it within the dollars that we have. And in my humble opinion, the two buildings that we have currently are beyond repair. And your town manager, this may be a big leap of faith, but I think you would all agree that they need to come down, and what we will do is place some bins there for sand and for, you know, for gravel, for mulch, and that seems to be at a very convenient location. And we will take all the noise making and put it at the far end, and your staff, a wisdom and a multitude of counsel, we sat around and we really worked on this thing, and I feel like it's going to meet our needs for the long run. And Jamie is excited. We did buy a lift. We didn't have a lift for our mechanic, and certainly that's a safety thing. And Jay has helped us on repairing pumps rather than replacing pumps. And so Jay has been an outstanding help to us, and we've all worked together, and Jay's helped us with staffing and interviewing. And when you see him, you need to give him a big thanks.
Dave, if I may say one thing real quick, thank you so much for entertaining and go looking for Mr. Gardner, talking him out of retirement and to come in and fill in and help out. That was a huge thing, and I personally want to say thank you, and thank you to Jay as well. I haven't had the opportunity to see him.
He is a wealth of knowledge and is always ready to share an opinion.
That was a very good idea to bring him back, and I do appreciate it. And as a person who has worked on cars, thank you for getting that guy a lift.
Yeah.
If he's rolling around on knees and this,
Well, the next guy won't know we didn't have a lift,
right.
because hopefully we'll have it in before he comes. But everybody has worked together. Everybody I bet half the employees have worked on this, and they all have a lot of great ideas. We just need to occasionally ask them and listen.
I was going to say, Lawrence, I did call Jay and thank
Did
him
you?
for all of us, how
Good.
much we appreciate him coming
Thank
back.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you know who the architect is you're dealing with?
Yes, I'm dealing with a fella from Ramsey, Bergen, and Smith that I have worked with before, and we're doing a metal building, and it could be a design build. I'm not sure, but at this point, he's helping us at no charge, and we're meeting next week and come up with a plan. So we'll see where we go from there. One thing is there is the rescue fund through our federal government, you know, from all of the work that we've done, and I've handed some information out to you, and it's money in this huge $1 trillion thing that the federals are doing. And if you look on the second page, and I didn't put everybody's down there, but on the second page, we are slated to receive $1,310,000. And about half of this would probably come to us in May, $655,000. And in terms of utilization, I think next week our staff will be sitting in on some sessions that would explain how we could use it. I do know that water and sewer is one that would be particularly good for us.
Very much.
And we will try to figure out a plan on how we might use that and bring that back to the board. We would receive probably the first installment in May, and 12 months later, we would receive the second installment. So that could be something that could be beneficial for the town and for the utility. If there's some bigger capital projects that we might use it on. There could be some other things that we could use it on, but I wanted, this came out to us, and I wanted to share. I think, Mayor, the other day when we met on a Zoom meeting, we heard that had come out. And so we are excited about that. We do have the AARP Livability Committee meeting March 23rd at 4:00 p.m. Via Zoom, and update on the ongoing sidewalk projects. I don't know if you want to. I know we got some, you can come up when I'm finished. We have certainly our newly hired employees, and we hope to have more. And I gave you an update on the golf maintenance building. And then the spring litter sweep is April 24th at 9:00 a.m. In the Food Line parking lot. And I had down here update on the on the sidewalks, and I realized I don't know a lot about that.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But I know one that might.
Yeah.
And that money, I think we have been paying, really high rates on the asphalt. And I think it's good for the board to at this low rate that we've received, to expand and use all of the budget money. I think bring
Absolutely.
value.
Yeah, I think that's
And so
great.
we appreciate that.
Dave, it hadn't been said enough, but it's great to have you here. I said it's great to have you here.
Well, I'm delighted to be here, and I'll not mention the word code enforcement.
Yes.
Till Friday. We'll talk about Friday.
There has not been a whole lot of activity on the sidewalk project. I'm sure you've noticed. We're still looking at a June completion, is what we're intending. That has not been updated. As was said earlier, we met with the contractor today, discussing some contract issues, pricing issues, making sure that we stay on track with our reimbursables. The railroad insurance form came in late yesterday afternoon. We've got to get those executed. Hopefully they'll go out in the mail tomorrow. Sorry I couldn't get it done today, but with the bid and a couple other meetings, it snuck up on me. But that's really the major activity right now for railroad.
What's going on with the Potter Drive sidewalk?
We have not done anything with that currently. I've spoken to Rebecca. We're going to try to have a time to go walk and see what our best choices are. There's been discussion of materials, and then the best route to get there and the terminus. We're looking at somewhere near the Scout Hut for the ending, and then how we want to put a crossing in there, which side of the Brookdale Potter intersection. I think we felt like meeting in the field and making sure we're addressing the concerns.
Was that in the budget for this fiscal year?
There's $44,000,
And I was
in this
thinking, we
year's.
thought the budget would be about 40,000.
It's
So you
$44,000,
have to get it done by June.
yes.
No pressure.
When you walk down there, you may want to go when school is getting ready to start and when school is ending, to see the pattern of the folks and where they come from
Yeah,
and how they're getting to the school,
that's a good idea, yeah.
because I see them in the mornings.
Thank you.
And
Any other questions?
the one item is for the 14th year in a row, and I thank Matthew and his staff, we are Tree City for the 14th year. I think we received that designation yet again, so very proud of that as well.
Excellent. Thank you. Council, do you have any committee reports?
Well, the TAC, the February 23rd meeting was canceled due to a lack of business, and so the next TAC meeting is scheduled for next week, March 23rd, plus they're having a special meeting on the 25th, so both of those are Microsoft Teams meetings, so I'll find out what that's about. Yesterday, we did have a Zoom comp plan steering committee meeting, and the consultant reviewed the proposed updated vision statement for Jamestown, and some members gave some additional feedback, and so the consultant is going to, that's Vaughn, we all know Vaughn, combine those comments and bring back to the committee at the next meeting, which is going to be March 29th. And then the consultant also presented, I don't know, it's about 12 or 14 guiding principles that they thought would be appropriate to use in composing the goals and the policies for the proposed comp plan. But the members felt it was a little quick for us to agree to that, so they were supposed to send us the presentation and then let members digest that. And then again, at the meeting on the 29th, we can sort of get into if those are appropriate or need to combine some different things. And then further on, the future plans is to have an in-person comp plan steering committee meeting on April the 13th here in the Civic Center, and then have some public meetings, tentatively on May the 1st, which is a Saturday, like different sessions, and then on May the 14th, which is a Tuesday. I think, is that what you think, Matt?
That's correct.
Pretty much a rundown of it. And of course, any and all of this, once the steering committee and they get it in whatever form, comes to the council. So when I say we've agreed on a vision statement, obviously that's pending the council's approval. And then I did participate in a webinar with the School of Government regarding evaluation process for a town manager on on February 26th. And I'm not going to take up much time on that because we're not ready for that, but I did learn several things, and I think it might be good at some time to have a special meeting, and we reviewed the forms that we have, and I know you had gotten some information before, and Lawrence, you had too, and so it may be good to review what the latest they've sent and review our process. A couple of takeaways I did get, most of the municipalities, and there were counties there too, none of them did a 360 evaluation. None of them did an employee evaluation of the manager, and they were not inclined to do so. And most of them did the review process twice a year. So I thought that was good information, and later on we can maybe review our process and firm it up a little bit. That's it for me.
I discovered something I did not know, and that's that we actually have a tree board that meets about once every half decade.
Yeah.
And the meeting lasted about 7 minutes, and it was basically dealing with a request by Sedgefield to review the trees that are going to be running down Penny Road in terms of how that was all going to be set up. Basically, the way the things have played out with the land, they've had run into a couple of small spots where they were asking if they could stagger out what they were doing with replanting and also what they had taken out. So it was really a very quick meeting. There wasn't a whole lot more to it other than just a review and an ask that they have the flexibility to basically just go in and plant and do this at a more staggered schedule than was originally planned. And it went without incident. That's it.
Thank you.
I do. I'm on the Guilford County Parks and Recs Commission, or Park and Recreation Committee. And one of the things that we discussed at our last meeting was maintenance. And I want to give huge accolades to our entire town staff and the way that we take care of buildings and things of that nature, the parks, the trails, all of our buildings. One of the things that, and the reason I say that is because one of the things that was presented at the last meeting was a $7 million request to get in and take care of the maintenance issues that the Parks and Recs actually has at this point. So to know that there's that much maintenance that needs to be done and know how good you guys and gals keep our property and keep our buildings is amazing, and I want to say thank you. So, I'm done.
Well, I had two. First, Planning Board, which was a pretty short meeting, talking about mainly land development ordinance updates. And so they looked at the changes and Matt presented, and we'll be seeing those soon. They voted to approve those, and so they'll be coming to council. And then also the Livable Communities Committee met for the first time, and as Dave said, we'll be meeting again next week, and had a really good, lively conversation. And it seems to be that right now, at least, there seem to be kind of three main areas that they're looking to focus on. Transportation and pedestrian safety, so more roads and sidewalks and that type of thing. Senior programming and caregiver support, and parks and recreation type facilities and senior programming there. So for this next meeting, we're going to flesh some of that out a little more, but also several of the members of the committee are going to report out on the proposed comp plan and parks plan and what areas sort of overlap with some of the livable communities initiatives that we already have in the works. And then also we have a member who is going to talk about the resources that Senior Resources of Guilford County already provides, and kind of talk about how maybe we could get more use out of our tax dollars with that, and maybe bring some of that programming specifically to town.
That'd be good.
Thank you. Okay, I have nothing to report. I just do taxes right now.
More power to you.
24/7, huh?
Exactly. Katie, do we have anyone signed up for the public comment period?
Nobody signed up.
Thank you.
Well, Madam Mayor, I would just like to mention, which many of you may know, Linda Faircloth, which is Representative John Faircloth's wife, passed away last week, and I just keep them in our thoughts and prayers. She was a wonderful lady, and she will be sorely missed.
And I would like to mention just kind of a public service announcement. We continue to get the emails and the suggestions from the public in the trash collection method, how to put it on the side of the road and this, that, and the other. I'd just like to remind the public that on our website, we mentioned some of the options that are out there. And if you would just review that, maybe help you make some decisions on how you place your trash on the side of the road. And continue to encourage the public to contact each and every one of us with their concerns. And don't be afraid to dial that number that's listed on the website and give us your input. I know each and every one of us actively go out and ask questions, but there may be the folks that there are folks that we're missing, and I'd like to hear from them. That's all I have.
March 29th, the Veterans Committee will be having the Vietnam Veterans Day ceremony at 11 o'clock that morning. Hope everybody can join us there. And also, I'd like to say thank you to Paul, who has taken care of people that called me that had issues with stoplights around town, and he was able to get those stoplights working in order by contacting the proper people. So we appreciate that interlude. Thank you. Anything else, guys?
No, ma'am.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Meeting adjourned.